So when I got this car from Mike, this is the Studebaker. This is a Studebaker Rockne. It has a nameplate on the side of it here. I'm pretty sure this says Rockne Motor Car. Now, when I bought this was really clear, and Mike showed it to me, and I thought it was cool. You can kind of see it, R-O-C-K-N-E. I don't know who did it, whether it was, I doubt if well, it could have been Bill, but it also could have been the guy that put the motor in this, but somebody painted over that, and when they did, it literally covered that completely up. So apparently, I thought that might have been embossed in there, but maybe not. These numbers are, and this might be actually the serial number. I have another number up here that we're using for a serial number, but to be honest with you, I don't know which one is a true serial number. Messing around with old cars, I've kind of figured out that sometimes the serial number that you wind up using is not really the serial number. Like on that Rambler over there, Josh took it to be registered, and the lady in the tag office said, well, that's not the number. And she actually came outside with him and opened the door and showed him a number inside the door, which is actually the paint code on the car. And that really was not the serial number, but she said, see, this is your serial number. Well, it turned out it wasn't. See, as I'm rubbing this, you can see the fine print on here and stuff, and you can see the Rockne sign a little bit better. I'm using steel wool and a little bit of acetone. I wanted to save this. I think this right here says Detroit, Michigan. I wanted to save this and recover it because, you know, once it's covered up, if nobody knows it's there, nobody will ever see it. This car being a Rockne makes it unusual, and you know, they only made a certain number of these. Now here that is right here. That answers my question too. A while ago I said I didn't know what that was, the serial number or not. Well, let's go back to that. Now you can see that right there, serial number right there. So kind of answers my question. I'm not sure which number they used down at the town office, but when I go back down there, I might go back down there and just talk to the lady there, because I started to tell you the story about the Rambler. A lady from the tag office came out with Josh, opened the door and showed them the paint number and said, this is your serial number, which wasn't true. But I don't even know why the serial number on that Rambler is stamped into the fender. And I could, you know, it's under the hood, you raise the fender, and it's right there on the little wheel well where the shock absorber goes. I have no idea what possessed her to say that wasn't the serial number. And I think part of it might come from when I was talking to the insurance lady, she was saying, well, certain states have a certain number of digits that needs to be in the serial number, and if they don't have that number of digits, it won't go through the computer, because the computer isn't set up to read, you know, the antique stuff and make sense out of it. And so they'll come out and try to add digits, or she said sometimes they'll add zeros to get it to go through the computer or something like that. There's a lot of writing here that I'd like to be able to read. But the Rockne motor part is coming out pretty clear here, which is great. I get my cell phone and maybe I can magnify this. The wonderful thing about cell phones is they make cool magnifying glasses. If you put it on camera. So this is Rockne. This is manufactured by Rockne Motor Corporation, Detroit, Michigan. It has Rockne written right there, and then it says Gedeponeerd. Geo. I'm going to take a picture of that. fine print there to see if I can make that make sense. I'll also work at cleaning that up a little bit more, but I might make a trip back down to the tag office and see if I should get this back to the original numbers. You know, one of the ideas of having serial numbers is so that you can, you know, if someone steals your car, you can identify, say, hey, that's my car, it's got the number on it. The problem with that is unless that is stamped onto the frame, or even if it is stamped onto the frame, someone can grind it off. In this case, this is bolted to the frame, so somebody could just clip these screws off and take that plate off. Probably sell it on eBay and get a few bucks for it. By preserving it, I get to have it and show it and prove that this is. Now this is something about U.S. Patent Office, trademark, Canada, Newfoundland, etc., Australia. This looks like, I don't even know what this is over here. This part. A lot of nice fine print there. I love days like this, by the way. Days where you got time to get out and mess around with your old car. That's pretty darn fun. So, it looks like it says Gedeponeer. This doesn't make any sense. I see Dutch East Indies. Oh, I see what that is. So this thing has a patent number, but it has, I see Poland on there. So it has a patent number and it has all these countries where the patent number is good. Take a picture of that. So that makes sense. So all these things here are names of countries. Trademark. It's a trademark registration for all these different countries. Now that's cool. So what happened here is somebody had painted this, make it all nice and pretty and shiny, but when they made it all nice and pretty and shiny, they took away what I value is that right there. What I could do is tape this up and just put some more black paint on either side of it to cover up the part where I made the pretty and shiny black paint go away and leave it where you can see that plate. And another thing I might do, and it might make sense to do, is to leave this as the serial number, because you can see that when they put paint over that, it actually covered up the serial number, because the serial number isn't cut down into the frame very deep. So maybe I'll just leave it alone, but you and I will know what it was and where it was. And you know, at some point this car's going to outlive me, and at some point who knows where it will go to, who will own it, or what will happen to it. But you and I know, and that's all that matters today. By the way, that brings up an interesting point. I've had an interesting thing happen, and it's a YouTuber out there. You know, I'm an old guy, and we love our old cars and stuff, but we die off, and after we die off, you've all seen it. You know, a car gets parked in the garage and barn and forgotten about. Barn falls down, or burns down, or something happens, and it's gone. And, you know, nobody's really around to care for it. And that doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes. But, you know, what does happen is over time, with no one caring for these cars, they deteriorate and cease to exist. And you've got a lot of choices when you're my age. You know, I'm not going to live forever. What do I do with a car like this, and who owns it next? And I don't think my son has an awful lot of interest in doing what you have to do to be dedicated to an old car like this, or my daughter, or, you know, Mike's son or any of his family doesn't seem to have, you know, stepped up and asked me to save this for them. But I had a YouTuber get in touch with me, and he said, I'd like to propose something different. He said, I would like to buy your rat rod as an inheritance. And he said, you keep the car, I'll pay you money, and you put it in your will and let all your children know that when you die, that car goes to me. And I kind of thought about that a little bit, and then he kind of sent me a couple more messages, and he said, you know, have you thought about it? And I said, oh, well, I'm still thinking about it. And I am still thinking about it, but that's an interesting idea. One, you know, he's a young fella. He's out there recognizing that I'm not going to live forever, and he's interested enough in the rat rods right here to be willing to put some money down and create a situation where at some point in the future he could inherit that car from me. I'd never heard of that. I'd never heard of anybody doing that. It's not a bad idea. In fact, it's kind of a cool idea. So I'm still thinking about that. But I mean, I just thought I'd put that out there. I'm not going to identify who the person is because they may not want me to. But I mean, it certainly is something that we could be thinking about and talking about. Those of us who own older cars and you know, want to preserve them, want to see them preserved, and want to see somebody get them who can take care of them and things like that. So there's that for y'all to think about and consider and talk about amongst yourselves and all that. I don't know if I have anything else to talk about. There is a car show this weekend. It's a little bit of a long way, but it's a nice drive. It's an hour and a half away. And I don't know, I asked one of my neighbors, he's not really a car guy, but he likes cars, and I asked him if he wanted to go, and he said, well, it's a long way to go, you know, sit down there in the back just for a car show. The other thing about it is a big car show, and I'm not a fan of big car shows. My preference would be a little car show where you could, you know, sometimes in a big car show, you just get lost in the monumentalness of it all. And this is one of those. They've been registering for this show for a long time, and you know, they're going to close Main Street and they're going to park cars on Main Street. And if you have a registration, then you can park down there in that special area. And then what will happen is people will come through. They'll come walking through, and they'll walk through that area and right down Main Street, the old Main Street, and they'll see all the cars. And if you don't get in the special area, then you just park somewhere else out behind Joe's butcher shop or something like that. But anyway, the YouTuber, Facebook guy that I talked to a lot, he's met me at a show before over in Elberton one time, and I guess if I went down there, I'd probably go down there just because he asked me to, which is not a bad thing to go to a show because somebody asked you to, and it's kind of nice for another hot rod person. That's like what's his name over there? Charles Dyer. They have a show over in Dexter, and he asked me to go one time, and I did. And then next year came around and said, hey, you want to do that show again? It's kind of got to be an annual thing. I go to your show, and you come to mine. He didn't come to mine, but he's got other things going on. Sound like somebody coming up the road in a four-wheeler. I have people that show up here in four-wheelers. Friends of mine ride them around the neighborhood. But yes, I'm debating on whether to go to that show. I think what I want to do is get my window washer and wash this, because maybe a lot of this that I'm washing off here is just old paint and dirt and stuff. I'll do that, and I'll see if so I got some of this, which is my favorite glass cleaner, this spray away stuff. And I washed that, and it did clean this up a lot. There's some dullness here, but it made it look a lot better. So I've got a little black paint sitting over there, and I could tape that off and repaint the black paint part on the frame. There's something else I was doing today too. I was trying to see if I could get this pipe off of here. this car is pretty darn loud, and Bill, I think, liked it that way, and I got some other car friends that like a really loud car. I'm kind of, I like a loud car, okay, but I like to be able to hear myself think and not have my head thundering with the loud exhaust pipes. If you're going on a trip for several hours and you're listening to a thundering loud exhaust pipe, that could give you a headache. Plus, you can't hear rock and roll on the radio if your exhaust pipes are too loud. Even though it's a little impressive to some people, go car show, race your motor, boom, 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 rumble, rumble. Everybody gets all impressed. I'm not always that impressed by a loud car. Sometimes I'm a lot more impressed by a quiet car. It's kind of like, if you're strong, you don't have to go around telling people you're strong. And if you've got a car that's powerful, you don't need to be announcing that this car's powerful by having super loud pipes. It's like a bully coming up on a ball field and saying, hey, I'm a tough guy, I'm going to let you all have it. Well, that's fine. But if you're really a tough guy, you don't go up on the ball field and start announcing that you are. If you're really a tough guy, you keep your mouth shut and have some manners about you, and you don't pull out your toughness unless you need to. And sometimes you need to. What's going on over in Ukraine right now is a good example of that. There's some people over there that suddenly have had to prove how tough they are when a great big bully like Russia, Russia did that tough guy thing. They showed up with 190,000 soldiers and rows and rows of army tanks, and they're in the process of getting beat back by a bunch of real tough guys who weren't making a lot of noise about it, but they were tough enough to send them home packing. Of course, the problem with them is they can't go home because they shoot them if they come back, or they imprison them or something. That's what I understand. I think Russia might be getting ready to have a change of way of being. After the Iron Curtain fell, there was an opportunity for Russia to become a different country. And, you can't just overnight go from being a communist country to a democratic country. It takes a while. We had a lot of pretty smart thinkers in the makeup of our country who helped write things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And a lot of our government was laid out to be self-canceling, meaning that in our government, no one ever wins all the time. There is no, like in Russia, there's this big bully, and he says, well, I'm the big bully, so everybody's going to do it my way, and you don't have any choice. You just have to obey me. But in a constitutional government, people have elections and they make decisions, and sometimes people aren't happy. They get a president or a senator or a politician that they don't like. But you know what? You just wait time, and there'll be another election. You can vote him out of office, or if he doesn't do what he says he'll do, you just have to deal with the time that you've got somebody that you don't like, and if they don't prove to be someone that the majority of people likes, after a certain time, they vote him out of office and they get somebody else. That way, it's not like some of these third world countries. They have to have a civil war in order to have a regime change, in order to throw out the big bully strongman. So a lot of people have to die, and we have a country that's not set up that way. Well, here Russia was, and they lost all of their the kind of way of doing business kind of went down the drain when the wall fell, and the communist government, the Politburo, and all that stuff ceased to be. And then there was a lot of problems that brought about because there wasn't really anybody in charge enough to manage a lot of the military, nuclear related equipment, and so they needed some stability. So that's how old Putin got back in there. So where was I going with that? Dang if I remember. I suppose it doesn't matter. It's probably had something to do with oh yeah, I'd like to see come out of this that Russia kind of gets a second restart, and Russian people, I believe, are good people, and I'd like to see them. Well, right now they have a politician in jail over there that Putin has tried to kill, tried to poison him, and then he stuck him in prison. But you know, he wanted to be the president of the country, and he had some ideas about maybe making some changes that would make it a lot more of a government of the people, I guess. I mean, I'm guessing that's probably why he was in jail, because Putin didn't want anybody to come along and fix things, because he had things fixed good enough for himself. He was continuing to, you know, be the big man in charge. And you see where that's led everybody. So I don't know, maybe the end result of all this will be that they'll get a new way of doing business over there, and they'll come out better off than they are now, or better off than they were when they went into this. Okay, so this looks pretty good. What I'm gonna do is go get me some tape. I'm gonna tape this sign off, and I put some spray paint on that back bumper the other day. I'll show you that. This bumper was made out of an old piece of metal that I had out back, so I sprayed it, painted the bolts, put it back on there, and put my tag on that. That ain't too fancy, but it'll do. But I got some leftover paint, so I might go get me some tape and tape up that little plaque and then spray that little part of that. Nice thing about having a black car is it's easy to touch things up, because if it's black, then there's always plenty of black paint around. So this is a really nice day in that I get to do this sort of thing. I mean, it's kind of fun and kind of relaxing to get to mess around with your old car. Oh shoot, I meant to grab me a sharp blade because I wanted to cut this tape. I'll be right back. Well, you know, I had one right behind me there. That's good. I'm gradually getting a few things down here so that, you know, just like right then when I needed a sharp blade. Oh, that's right, I brought one down here the other day and left it right there. I have enough tools to have some tools down here and some tools up in the other garage, and it's really not necessary for me to only have all of my tools in just one place. Sometimes having a few here and a few there is a really good thing. I think what I might do is just take this whole thing up and then cut the edge of it. That way, rather than try to run a tape line all around that sharp edge. And y'all see what I'm doing there? Instead of trying to run a tape line around an edge, if I just run it straight across and then tape and cut it, that can be better, maybe. So I feel like sometimes I'm not much of a know-it-all because I don't know very much, but we learned some things when I was young that people don't seem to be learning anymore. Maybe they just don't teach it in school. You know, I had a history teacher in high school that made sure that I understood civics. Although the word civics was never used, he taught me a lot of things about civility and being civil. And at the time, I just thought he was a boring old man. But as I've looked around at our world and our country and some of the people that have come along after me who maybe just didn't get taught that stuff, I begin to wonder how we ever got away from that and why. And I've begun to see the results of it. You know, we've got people killing each other pretty regularly in this country. And a lot of times it's people shooting politicians because they can't deal with, well, I don't know what it is they can't deal with, but they just decide the way to fix things is just to go out and kill people. And that's not a very civil way to behave, and it doesn't create a very good effect, because after a while nobody wants to be a politician if they're all going to become targets. And we have made and are making targets out of our politicians. And if you kill off all the politicians, I mean, you might not like them very much, but who's going to run the country? You get to be like Russia. If nobody's going to run the country and some guy comes along that can be very powerful, he'll just say, well, Nobody else wants to run the country, so I'll do it, and none of y'all have to worry about anything. I'll take care of everything. And then he funnels money to all his rich buddies. Well, he makes his buddies rich, and they do things for him. They get him chicks and line him up with hot dates, and all his friends gets to do all the things that nobody else gets to do because they're all friends with the rich, powerful person. And before you know it, you have the rich, powerful person saying, "Well, let's go invade another country. We're doing pretty good here. We're pretty happy running things. So if we're this happy running our own country, how happy could we be if we was also over there running that other country?" So they go and make a lot of army tanks, and they get a lot of soldiers, and they take them over and they park them on the border of a small country, and they say, let's just go attack these guys and take their country. And then we'll have everything we got, and we can have everything they got too. That's not the best way for our world to work. And as a planet, it's a good idea if us people who live on this planet make a plan where we can all get along and where we can all work together for the benefit of us all and for the benefit of our children who are going to come along behind us. And if we burned out the planet, and y'all probably, I don't know if y'all know much about history or not, but when I was a kid, there was rivers that were on fire, that were that they were polluted so bad that the water would burn. They'd be on fire. That was happening. The air was so dirty. I remember going out when I was a truck driver. I went out to Hollywood. And, I thought it'd be nice to go to Hollywood. I got that big Hollywood sign, and I was looking forward to see that. Well, I got out there one day and I couldn't see it. I never did see it. I never did. I asked around. I said, "Where's this big Hollywood sign?" Is? "Oh, it's over on the hill. I can't see it." And they said, "Well, that's because of pollution. We got smog. We got smog out here in Hollywood, and you can't see the Hollywood sign because it's covered up with smog. It's covered up with pollution." If we live in a world like that, where it's so polluted that you can't see the beautiful things, and people are getting sick like they have done and can often do over in China. People start getting sick because the air is so polluted. Or India's a good example. It's a mess. Unless enough people agree to have people run things and not try to kill off all the people that want to run things, but support them. And that's another concept that seems to be missing in today's world. Back when I was a kid, we were told to support our leaders, pray for our leaders, ask the good Lord to guide our leaders. If we weren't happy with our leaders, obviously we had a method for taking them out. We'd vote, We wouldn't, after the vote, all fight with each other and say, "Well, you cheated." I mean, that makes me mad. Just because, when I was a kid, we used to vote on all sorts of things. Out on the ball field, you vote on which players and teams are going to be on. Just imagine what a mess that would have been if we'd have all got out there and we'd all picked our teams, and then somebody said, "You cheated. I'm supposed to be on that team. You put me on this team, and it makes me mad. It makes me feel like there's just a bunch of crybabies trying to take over the world. And those of us who are human enough to tell them to cut it out, I'll tell them to cut it out. Doesn't it seem that way to y'all? Now keep in mind, I'm not going to live a long time, and so you can ignore what I'm saying if you want to, but that means that you and your children are the ones that may wind up dying at some point in the future because people hadn't learned to live together and hadn't learned to get along and hadn't learned to elect good leaders and let them be in charge and support them and help them instead of shooting people down in the streets. We had politicians that got shot. I can't remember who. There was a lady that got shot. She was a politician. Somebody shot her down, We can't go around doing that. We got to do better than that. And if you can't see that, then, I don't know, maybe you need to pray about it. Or just look at any of these third world countries that they can't get it together enough to have a decent country where people can live with. There's all kind of places you can look at around the world where things are a huge freaking mess. A lot of them got that way because somebody came along and wanted to overthrow somebody else, and they destroyed all the things that make life work. And the things that make life work are things like, being able to grow a garden and eat your own food, being able to have a neighbor that grows a garden, and not only can you eat some of his food, but he can get some of your stuff. You might be a pretty good welder, like, I weld and stuff. You might be a pretty good welder, so you can weld up his tractor and he can grow some food. You can eat his food and he can have his tractor work because you welded it up, and you guys can cooperate and instead of everybody trying to kill each other because they don't agree. Or another. That right there wasn't on there. That everybody trying to kill everybody about not agreeing on one thing or another. People agree to support each other, pray for each other. They may not always agree, but that don't mean you have to kill everybody in the process. I don't usually talk about, I suppose this is getting dangerously close to politics. I don't usually talk about politics, but the reality is I ain't going to live that much longer. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way because it makes it sound like I think I'm going to die tomorrow. Well, along those lines, my neighbor over there found out she got breast cancer. Husband's got some kind of dementia. I know I can list off on many fingers many people who aren't alive anymore. People don't live forever. And yeah, I could be dead this time next year. My wife could, or any of us could. I guess if you got something that you think is important to say, maybe you do need to say it. So I'm saying it now. Y'all be civil. Y'all be nice to each other. There's a lot of biblical principles that just teach you to have respect for yourself and other people. Just teaches you to be nice. Read some of the prophetic books in the Bible are really fun to read. They're really good. And there's some things in the Bible that are hard to read, but a lot of it's got some good stuff in there. Okay. So, I'm going to let that dry before I peel the tape off of it. I'm trying to think which book in the Bible I would recommend. I hadn't read my Bible a lot lately, but I'm thinking, is it Isaiah that's got all those prophecies in it? The books of the prophecies. Well, they're books that just tell you how to be. If I had a Bible handy by, I'd open one up and we'd talk about that. But I don't. Maybe I'll do that another day. I have to tell you, one thing I have done is I've ordered me a Broadman hymnal. Now, the Broadman hymnal came out in the 40s. When I was a kid in church, we used to sing songs in church from the Broadman hymnal. And I had one from the church that I went to as a kid, and it got in the flood. It got damaged and wasn't no good, and I couldn't keep it. But I ordered me one. I'm thinking about I might just start singing a song out of the Broadman hymnal every day or two on YouTube, just so that people hear the songs and they don't get forgotten about. Some of them old songs are really pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. That paint does dry pretty quick. It may be dry already, so I might be able to peel this thing off of here. We can see it. Maybe. Yeah, I think I can. I probably should let it dry some more. I'm going to mess it up if I don't quit. So the other thing I was doing is trying to take this pipe off of this pipe on this header pipe. Bill told me this had some kind of a muffler insert in it. I think I was talking about this a while ago. I was talking about the car being loud. I'd like to put a quieter muffler in the car, in here. I could do like that car. That car there has a pipe that you can open up, and then it has another pipe that goes under the car, and it's got a couple of cherry bombs under it. And I could do something like that here, but I kind of like this pipe. It's suitable. If I could get this off, and if there's not a muffler, put one in, or if there's not a muffler that's making it quiet, I could maybe put a quieter one in. I've been looking online to see what's available. So, but I took the bolt out of the other side and I tried to tap this, and boy, that thing is stuck on there good. I may wind up having to saw that off and put a new pipe on it. I'd hate to do that because I'd like to see what's inside of this one before I saw it off and try to put something else in there. So there's that. All right, I think I'll quit talking now because sometimes I talk for a little bit and then I lose track of what I was saying, and then I just become nonsensical. It's not too unusual for me. I can be a little nonsensical sometimes. And I don't know if anybody's following any of what I said or not, and I don't know. I can't make none of y'all think the way I want you to think, and that's one good reason for me not to really want y'all to think any way in particular, but I would like to see you thinking enough so that you don't destroy the planet or kill each other off. You know, there's any number of wars about the end times, about where we all kill each other off on this planet. It'd be nice if we didn't make them into reality. Don't you think? Doesn't that look good? See, now the frame's nice and clean, and I have that little sign back. So, yep.